Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. The topic of this 10-minute moan is amazing £41 billion of your money that was in the World Bank for climate finance, which is unaccounted for. And who's telling us that? Oxfam International. Now, this story is about 6 or 8 weeks old, but the reason I'm sharing it is I'd never heard of it before. And if I've not heard of it, I would imagine some of you have, but there's a fair chunk won't. So I thought I would share it with you. And the reason I hadn't heard of it, Google it, try and find anything about it in any mainstream media, and you'll fail. But you will find it in Oxfam's website. So it's genuine, right? But not a single mainstream media outlet has followed up on the story, which is why it's been left to those online to share it, and now it's my turn. So, just reading from Oxfam's website, I'll put a link to this below so you can verify it. They say in the headline, up to $41 billion in World Bank climate finance unaccounted for, Oxfam finds. Up to $41 billion in World Bank climate finance, which is nearly 40% of all climate funds dispersed by the bank over the past 7 years, is unaccounted for. Due to poor record-keeping practices, reveals a new Oxfam report published today ahead of the World Bank and IMF annual meeting in Washington. An Oxfam audit of the World Bank's 2017 to 2023 climate finance portfolio found that between $24 billion and $41 billion in climate finance went unaccounted for between the time projects were approved and when they closed. There is no clear public record showing where the money went or how it was used, which makes any assessment of its impacts impossible. It also remains unclear whether these funds were even spent on climate-related initiatives intended to help low and medium-income countries protect people from the impacts of climate crisis and invest in clean energy. The bank is quick to brag about its climate finance billions, but these numbers are based on what it plans to spend, not on what it actually spends once a project gets rolling, said Kate Donald, head of Oxfam International's Washington office. It's like asking your doctor to assess your diet only looking at the grocery list without checking which is actually in your fridge. The bank is the largest multilateral provider of climate finance, accounting for 52% of the total flow from all multilateral development banks combined. The issue of climate finance will take centre stage at this year's COP in Azerbaijan, where countries are set to negotiate a new global climate finance goal. This is a cracker, you need to pay attention here. The new collective quantified goal, climate activists are demanding the global north provide at least $5 trillion a year in public finance to the global south as a down payment towards their climate debt, to the countries, people and communities of the global south who are least responsible for climate breakdown but are most affected. Oxfam warns that this lack of traceable spending could undermine trust in global climate finance efforts at this critical juncture. So just going to stop a second there and try and get in my head what we've just covered. So what they're saying here is all this money that's made its way to which is probably climate south, that's the less well-off countries who are affected by the well-off countries' industrialisation, causes problems with the climate and they're affected. I think that's how they justify it. Whether it's true or factual is another debate. So what they're basically saying here is we've gave them all this money and it's unaccountable because we don't know if they actually spent it on any global or change, climate change or fuel projects, which is what the money was given for. And now we're telling the global north, that's like us, that we should be giving them £5 trillion a year down payment. So we can not account for that either going forward. So we've had 7 years of not accounting for money, and the people who have received the money are now wanting $5 trillion a year. Right? This is the scam of all scams. right? Whew. Climate finance is scarce, and yes, we know it's hard to deliver, but not tracking how or where the money actually gets spent, that's just not some bureaucratic oversight. It's a fundamental breach of trusts that risks derailing the progress we've made at COP this year. The bank needs to act like our future depends on tackling the climate crisis, because it does, said Donald. I'm not buying this climate crisis stuff, to be honest with you. I think, yeah, there might be issues, that humans may affect the planet, but to think that we can affect it enough to make it extinct, this thing that's been about for 4 billion years and seen ice ages and extreme heat and extreme cold and survived, I think we think quite a lot of ourselves if they think we, after about 100 odd years of industrialisation, can actually affect it enough to kill the planet, right? Calm down. And when we hear the figures that some people are wanting £5 trillion, dollars off other people every year, now that we've got money involved, can we actually take anything that we're told about it? You hear what I'm saying? Oxfam's investigation revealed that obtaining even basic information on how the World Bank is using climate finance was painstaking and difficult. We had to sift through layers of complex and incomplete reports, and even then the data was full of gaps and inconsistencies. The fact that this information is so hard to access and understand is alarming. It shouldn't take a team of professional researchers to figure out how billions of dollars meant for climate action is being spent. This should be transparent and accessible to everyone, most importantly, communities who are meant to benefit from climate finance. Well, I would say the communities who are funding the climate finance, they kind of deserve to know as well, Donald, all right? So that's their report. And it's one of the maddest things I've ever heard. Up to 41 billion, completely unaccounted for. And the people receiving it are now looking for 5 trillion a year. Now we understand the figures involved in this climate catastrophe. Now you can maybe understand why many people are left scratching their head at some of the claims by those driving this agenda of the climate catastrophe. I'll tell you again, in my time, I remember as a young child being warned about acid rain, where we would probably not be able to go outside without fear of being burnt by the rain. The ozone layer was meant to be disappearing. All these things, none of them happened. And before we had climate change, we had global warming. And then when they realised after 20 years that the Earth's temperature wasn't going up, that name got dropped quietly. We didn't come out one day and say, right, we're changing the name from from global warming to climate change. It just suddenly stopped talking about it, and we started using this and other buzzwords. Climate change. Of course you get climate change. Climate's always changed. Right? We've been told for about 50 years that the water levels are going to rise, but I could still go to Venice. I could still go to Mauritius and the Maldives. But the sea levels have been going to rise and wipe out cities for all my life. So no, I'm not convinced. And when you figure out the figures of money getting moved about because of climate, I can understand, right, to a certain degree, if somebody said, look, we need to spend all this money to try and prevent making the planet worse. Kind of understand that, but I'm kind of struggling with the bit that it's like repatriation money, isn't it? We've got to give these people over here some money. What for? Because you've done some bad shit. I've never done any bad shit. Right? I've never had a slave or a coal-powered power station. I've never had these things. But I have to pay for some guy in some country, in some continent south of the equator, who's been affected by climate change. It's been bloody warm in the middle of the Sahara Desert forever. I went there when I was 8, right? It's off a warm. Do you know what? It's still off a warm. It was off a warm before the industrial age. So why should I be paying him anything to live in a place that's been off a warm for an awful long time? Because that kind of sounds like the justification of why this £5 trillion should be paid. It's absolute bonkers. So not only have they spunked the money, right? I'll be away in somebody's big nice plaza somewhere, right? There's a nice shopping centre somewhere. But not only that, we have to give them more. Nah, calm down, right? If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and let other people see it, because it does help get it in front of others when you do that. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and the notification button. Let us know your comments below. Always enjoy reading them. But most importantly of all, unless you are the type of people that tell lies about climate change, that steal the money, and want to take even more of us. No you, but
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.